Slasher. Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, Monday nights, Slasher Movie Club, and Coriander. This is episode 101. So I'm keeping track like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and tonight, very similar to last week. A very interesting conversation, a good discussion, but also pretty emotional. I think tonight we'll follow a little bit in those footsteps because we're doing a movie, talking about a movie that is a little bit more off of the radar of what we usually would do in this series, but maybe a shape of some newer things that we're going to be trying to do in this series. But we're going to be talking about 1981's Death of a Centerfold, the Dorothy Stratten story, starring Jamie Lee Curtis. So before we get into that, just to say hello to everyone in the chat, we've got Jen, who also watched it with us last night in our members watch party, which was really, really cool. Thank you. We've got Dan. All right. And Dan, I think everybody felt that way about that guy. Yes, absolutely. Phillips in the chat. Melissa saying never heard of this. And Melissa, let me just tell you, none of us did. Everyone,
That's true.
it was a first time watch. And that's exactly why, as we got into realizing that we had never heard of this, and this was actually, Coriander, your suggestion, which, by the way, I'm so glad that you did suggest it. I'm very glad. Usually I wouldn't do this, is to talk about this in the beginning of our episode, but I'm very glad that I watched it, and it was a powerful experience. So but that's some of this type of stuff that we've been trying to do on Slasher Movie Club, is doing talking about some movies that not everyone else may have heard of, or maybe had seen recently, and so forth. So I guess we're going to continue this trend.
That's the good thing about this, right?
I agree.
So,
I agree. What's going on, Denisha? We got Jerry as well. What's going on to you? Yeah. And Melissa saying, I looked for it, can't find it anywhere to watch. It is on YouTube.
Yep.
It is on YouTube. Yes.
Look up Death of a Centerfold and she'll come up.
And
Dorothy Stratten, that'll come right up.
That's what we watched it on, was YouTube, which once again providing some good source material.
And it's free, right? Yeah.
Also, we got Jose in the chat.
Hello.
Welcome, saying my best regards from Mexico City. And he says, "Very nice and interesting channel. Congratulations." Thank you so much. We
All
appreciate that.
right.
And
Awesome.
welcome,
Yeah.
welcome to the live chat, the live stream, and this
Yeah.
awesome community. Okay, so Coriander,
Yeah.
let's start to get into this a little bit. Can you just tell the folks, because as far as the movie's concerned,
Yeah.
there are just a few points to touch upon. And we
Hmm.
will touch upon the fact that this is based on real events, a real
Yep.
life story, which is tragic. But can you
Yes.
just give a little bit of a backstory on how you came upon this movie and your whole purpose of wanting to visit this on Slasher Movie Club?
I can't remember if I was scrolling through my phone or what I was doing, but I saw that Jamie Lee Curtis, which I'm a huge fan, huge, was in
Hmm.
this movie. I had never seen it, and it just intrigued me. And
Hmm.
yeah, so I was like, let's check it out. So
Okay.
that's how I came upon it. It was by chance. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay, and as soon as you said that and you said Jamie Lee Curtis, I said, "Yeah, let's go for it." And truth be told, this movie is totally different than what I thought we were going to be getting into, but in a good way. In a good way.
Right.
We got Neil in the chat too. What's
Hello.
going on? Good to see you. And he says, "Never seen this one, but I have seen Star 80." Now, it's interesting you said that, Neil, because you beat me to the punch. Star 80 is the other movie that's based on the life of Dorothy Stratten, starring
Oh, okay.
Mariel Hemingway, and
Hmm.
Eric Roberts.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But just get
Oh, we'll have to watch it and compare.
maybe,
I'm
yeah. Well, that's
curious.
I was going to get to that near the end, but
Oh, I'm
let's
sorry, babe.
let's get into this first.
All right.
So we've got this story about, this regular lady, young lady, I should say, who
Yeah.
grew up in Canada, and Jamie Lee Curtis is obviously the lead in this, and stars as Dorothy Stratton. You've got Bruce Weitz, who's playing Paul Snyder. You've got Robert
Hmm.
Reed, who's playing David in the film, and you have a whole bunch of other well-known
Yeah.
character actors. Um, it's absolutely crazy. As we were watching the film, we were noticing,
Yep.
oh, this person, that person, this person.
Hmm.
Mitchell
Like, I
Ryan.
love how you got Mr. Brady right there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the
Oh,
cover
shit.
of the VHS of
Yep.
the movie. You
Oh,
also have
nice.
Mitchell Ryan, who was portraying Hugh Hefner, and of course, for Halloween fans, there was a lot of Halloween alumni in this film. Um, so the movie starts off and it already shows Dorothy basically as a centerfold model, and Jamie Lee Curtis, and posing for pictures and all this type of stuff. So you have no idea where this is all going to be going if you've never seen it before. But then
Hmm.
it basically flashes back to the first time that she meets Paul, and she worked at a Dairy Queen, and basically just a regular young lady, and right off the bat you could tell that this guy is just no good. You had a scene before
Yeah.
this where he was basically interrogated by like a mobster for snitching to the cops. And so he's just living a bad lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
In real life, he was a promoter, he was a pimp, he was, into just a lot of shady stuff. At this point in the film,
Yeah.
Coriander, what were you thinking of? First of all, Jamie Lee Curtis and her portrayal of Dorothy, and of course with Paul as a character and when he meets her.
I thought Jamie did really good with this role.
Mhm.
Um, and so did this guy. I mean, what was his
Yes.
name again? You just said it. What
Well,
was his name again?
in the film, it's Paul.
It's Paul. Yes.
Yes.
I
Yep.
mean, he was he was believable. I mean, he was so
Mhm.
good in this role.
Yes.
Um, I was enjoying, I started enjoying this movie from the moment it started. So,
Mhm. Yeah,
I
it
mean,
had
yeah.
well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, and hey, man, and everyone else that's jumping in. It
Hello.
had a real charm to it, again, being 1981. And,
Yeah.
I was saying this to to our good buddy Steven last night when we were doing the watch party. I can't think of a early 80s or 80s movie with Jamie Lee Curtis that I haven't seen. So,
Mhm.
being able to watch this almost like a time capsule was really
Yeah.
enjoyable as a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, as the story proceeds, you start to really see all these red flags. This guy, he's basically kind of schmoozing her over, and you
Mhm.
could just tell that
He's
he
like
he was
twice her
just
age also. So
well,
right
yeah,
there.
well, in real life, he was 26 and she was 17. Now,
Okay.
I'm not sure what they said in the movie. I don't think they ever necessarily said his age, but we know that she was 17.
18. Well, in the
Um,
beginning, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, he comes and schmoozes her over and sets up a date. Now, when he comes over to her aunt's house, her aunt is basically her parental figure. Um,
Mhm.
he's got on he's got on a fur coat, and he's just that type of guy.
Pimping,
And yeah,
right?
exactly. And that's the life that he comes from, is you know uh, nightclubs and all of that type
Strippers
of
and
stuff.
oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Dorothy's aunt basically said, this guy isn't the right type of guy for you.
Mhm.
You need to get away from him. And of course, I guess the point I want to make is, and Jamie Lee Curtis was really good at this. She had low self-esteem.
Mhm.
And here she had this guy that was, kind of whining her and dining her in a sense. And ultimately, he did start to do that, buying her dresses. But he gave her that attention. And so
Mhm. And the
she was,
confidence.
yes, and a confidence. But it already was a sad story. And this is only not
Yeah.
even 15 minutes into the movie, because you can kind of see where it's all going. But I think you hit it on the nose. I think Jamie Lee Curtis was very, very good in this role, and she had a spectrum of emotions that she
Mm.
displayed, where there was that naive, happy-go-lucky type of vibe that she originally had, and as time goes on, the
Mhm.
the 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 fear and the stress and the doubt, and also the elation, as she
That's the
ultimately
worst
did
part.
have success.
Yeah, it's when you know you're kind of stuck and you're too scared to do anything.
Right,
So,
right. Absolutely, absolutely. But as the story went on, he basically, um, just started to date her. He kind of pushed his way into it. But right off the bat,
mhm.
there was a scene right here where he was basically putting her up for sale, pimp mentality, with
Oh
a
yeah.
photographer that he knew, basically saying,
Mhm.
you know, my girl can be, a Playboy playmate someday. We got to take pictures and this and that. And he was already putting her into very
And not only
uncomfortable
that, right,
situations.
right. When he came to pick her up, he's like, and they walked out the door, he's like, look at you. You got to take that makeup off and take
Hmm.
your bra off. And, yeah,
Yeah.
he was being a wicked jerk.
Yeah.
You could tell. What a dick.
Yeah, yep, he really was. And even in scenes like this, and again, it's just
Mhm.
little things, at least for me as a movie fan, but also a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis. She was really, really convincing in this role. Like, even in this scene right
Yeah.
here, which was a really good screen grab, you could just see in her face a lot of different things. And
Mhm.
it's interesting, because as people become very famous in their careers, and obviously Jamie Lee Curtis has, sometimes people forget, although she just did win an Academy Award. But you almost forget that, she has so much talent, in
Mhm.
her ability. So, but anyways, she's put into these situations and ultimately is taking pictures for this photographer, and did not want to do nude pictures. But Paul, once again, was pushing her
Yep.
into this world, which she definitely was not comfortable in at first, saying,
Mhm.
well, do you want to be a nobody forever? This is your chance, and so forth and so forth.
Mhm.
You can become a star. And it's just really, really
Pressure,
crazy.
man. Oh yeah.
Lots of pressure. She
Mhm.
eventually does, um, because of those photos, gets the attention of Playboy, and goes out to the Playboy mansion. And at this point in the story, you can see as a character she starts to gain confidence and a little bit more of her own um individuality, so
Mhm.
to speak. What did you think of these scenes once she was in LA? She goes to the Playboy Mansion, she meets up with Hugh Hefner, and she's rooted in this new lifestyle.
Well, she was obviously in awe, and she's
Hmm.
such a sweet girl because she's 18, she's a young
Right.
lady,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, I mean, if, like I said, I enjoyed this movie throughout the whole thing, and her performance, I mean, as the movie went on, you could see, you know, almost like her becoming her own, except
Right.
this person, Paul here, is that his name? Paul
Yes, Paul.
is like, yeah, he's just uh, waste, waste
Yeah,
that you
and
just can't get rid of.
and he's basically trying to act as her de facto agent, and every
Yeah.
time all of the folks at Playboy, as they're setting up different projects and opportunities for her, he's saying things like, well, nothing happens without my say so, she's my property. And he
Hmm.
literally said that,
Yeah.
and in the movie anyways, which is parallel to real life, Hugh Hefner in the movie, had these moments where he was trying to give her some guidance, because obviously he has seen so many young women go down
Yeah.
this path. And
But
obviously. Go
not
ahead.
only him, but a lot of people were
Hmm.
telling her, dude, this guy is no good.
Yeah.
But she felt stuck. She felt stuck.
Well, I think part of
And
it
she was
too was,
scared.
yes, she was scared, but I think part of it too is, and this was said in the real life,
Like she owed him, right?
yes,
She felt
she
like
had a
she
really
owed him,
she
you
had a
know.
really big heart, and she
Mhm.
did not want to hurt him any more than what she already was. As far as now, she was becoming famous, she was making money, she was the
Mhm.
star, and he was totally in the background. And it was even said in real life he was only tolerated in these circles, like at the Playboy Mansion, and at different other um social gatherings. He was only
Yeah.
tolerated because he was with her, and he
Mhm.
eventually coerced her into marriage, and
Yeah.
so they did get married, which I remember as we were watching this movie, I was just like, no, don't do
I
that.
know. I know. I don't know why she did it, you know.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
owe somebody, but don't get married to them. You
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
No way in
Yeah,
hell. Mm-mm.
absolutely. Dan was saying, you wish that mobster had broke his legs. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Did more
absolutely.
than that.
Yeah. Philip, you're right. Anyone who thinks they own people are disgusting.
Yeah.
Dan was saying, it's bad when Hefner is the most sympathetic male in her life. True enough. True enough. And you could tell that, at least the way he was portrayed. And again, guys, we want to also understand, there's the movie, and then of course there's the real life, which, we'll touch upon just a little bit. But in the movie, anyways, he was portrayed as someone who, again, tried to give her a little bit of guidance, but yet he didn't go all the way in trying to help her, and I'm
Yeah.
assuming that might be because he's thinking, I don't want to get, and actually I think he did say it in the movie, I don't want to, get involved. And so
Mhm.
it's a really tricky thing. In real life, he was actually there was a lot of slander, to Playboy and him about not getting involved enough to help, you know, um, guide better, these women such as Dorothy.
Mhm.
But that's another story. Ultimately, and you gotta love, in this film, again, just talking about the film, you gotta love, as far as the character that Bruce Weitz is portraying as Paul Snyder, the way he's
Mhm.
dressing, he's got the boots and the spurs, and this is actually real life. And I do have real life images that later on that I'm going to show, but this really was how he dressed. He was definitely this guy who tried to live
Oh,
that high
yeah.
life and pimp
Mhm.
image and all of that type of stuff. But at this point in the movie, he's really losing his grip on Dorothy. He knows it, and he's starting to become enraged and depressed, and also lashing out at her business managers. In this particular scene, he lashed out at her agent, and it was really it was an uncomfortable part of the movie because you could see it even in this screen grab. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis was she, she was she had a lot of stress on her shoulders. She really did, and it was really sad to see.
Mm,
And
yeah.
Coriander, let's get to, when she basically left Paul,
Mhm.
and it was a really interesting scene, kind of a scary scene because, she had her little kitten, and he was almost acting like he was going to hurt the cat, and just, oh my gosh, it was really, really rough. And she got in the car. What did you think of this particular scene? Oh, hello.
You could say,
Oh,
well, all I did was, oh, can you hear me?
yeah, yeah, I can hear
Hello?
you.
Can you hear? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So when this scene started, I felt I was so happy that she was in that car and leaving. And
Hmm.
it's just too bad it wasn't, anyway. Yeah. This was that was a rough scene, because it's tough when you see a guy being abusive to, to people, to animals, so
Yep.
yeah, it's tough. So,
Yeah, and what was also the thing about this particular part of the scene, or part of the movie, I should say, is that once she left him, she basically, in the movie anyways, found solace in a relationship with David Palmer, who was a writer working on a movie, on a script for a movie, and wanted to have her star in it because she was trying to also um, start a film career. And that was kind of the other thing that
yep.
was going on, is that she was trying to have more than just just the playboy part of her life be what defined her. So it was just really sad, but David kind of gave her um an escape, so to speak. Now in real life, this is interesting because real life is a little bit different, but in real life,
Yeah.
this was not
They
David.
loved each other. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They had a connection,
Yeah.
and those types of things, and you saw that in not only the way that they related to each other, but also in scenes where he was trying to tell her, "You need to get away from your husband. You need to live your own life. You're worth more than what you know inside," and all that
Mhm.
type of stuff. But in real life, um, the character of David, it wasn't David, it was actually Peter Bogdanovich, who was a very famous director. He actually just passed away, I believe it was last year. He had
Mm.
he was the director of The Last Picture Show and some other films. And so, anyways, that's a little bit of the parallels between this movie and real life. But at this point in the story, you can see that Paul is becoming more and more jealous. There was that scene where he was spying on them and had a private detective spying on them, and he would call over to the house and try to win her back, and so you just knew this was going in the wrong direction. And especially
Yeah.
when he's at this bar, and he basically is buying a shotgun, from this seedy dude
Yeah.
in a seedy bar.
Yep.
So it's just going downhill. But again, the actor, I should say, the actor who was portraying Paul, he was very, very convincing as a person that's totally self-absorbed, egotistical, dangerous, jealous, enraged, and so forth. You really bought into that, and unfortunately, it just ends in tragedy. She's trying to get away from this guy, and she has all of these people in her life that are telling her to do it, but
But
she
and to stay
doesn't.
away from him. And she
Yes.
didn't again, she doesn't listen. She
Yeah,
didn't listen to any of these people.
she was trying to do it in a way, I guess I should say, she was trying to do it in a way where she didn't totally hurt him, and
Mhm.
she still felt something for
Yeah,
him,
I get
even
it,
though she wanted to
Yeah,
divorce him.
even though I completely
Yeah.
get it. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just really, really it was a tough watch, man, because she wanted the divorce and she wanted to settle terms with him and decided to meet with him, and it just ends in tragedy. It totally ends in tragedy. So for you guys in the chat, this is definitely a film um that I think it just had a lot of different elements to it, that were interesting. I think there were some great performances, especially by the leads. Obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis and Bruce White's portraying Dorothy Stratton and Paul Snyder. Coriander,
Yeah.
let's do this. What we usually would do is talk about how we would rate a movie. So let's do that now, and
Okay.
then if anyone in the chat has any questions, we can answer those, but also kind of just have a little bit of the parallel to the real life, and a few points I wanted to make about that. So usually, as we do this, we have our grading system. We have 4 badges, meaning that we think that the film is an excellent film. We have our 3 badges, meaning that we think the film is good. We have 2, meaning that it's so-so. You could take it or leave it. And then, of course, the dreaded 1 badge, meaning that we just did not like the film at all, that it's what we call dark territory, aka Don't Go in the Woods, aka Student Bodies, aka Blood Cult, aka Good Night, God Bless, and a few other films that we've talked about in the past. So, Coriander, what would you give Death of a Centerfold?
Okay. Well, I really, really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Um, and in a way it was tough, because people who survived or are survivors of
Right.
domestic violence
Yep.
can relate, so
Absolutely.
and of
Yeah.
course,
I mean, it's very
we're
difficult.
yeah, and
So, I
me
think that
being
anytime,
one makes it a little more, you know, you can relate more
you
because
can
you can
relate to it.
feel the fear and having that feeling of being stuck. So, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3 just because
Okay. We'll give it
I don't
3
know if I could,
stars.
like yeah, I don't know how much I would, rewatch it.
Well, I definitely think this is a film that it definitely it's a hard watch. When we were finished this film at the end of it last night, I think I can speak for you and Steven and myself. It was heavy. I remember we were talking for a few minutes after that, and we just kept saying, "Man, this was a
Yeah,
heavy film. It was really, really tough to watch." And even more so the fact that it's real life. That it's based
yeah,
upon. So, but for me, I think I'll agree. I think that this is definitely a good film. It's a 3 for me. And the only reason I don't give it an excellent is I just think that again, if you're a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis, or if you know of the story and you want it to, kind of see more about the details of the story, I would give it a 4. But
yeah,
if you're not, a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis, or if you're not, someone that knows about the Dorothy Stratton story, then it'd probably be one of those situations where you may not even see it, which a lot of people, including us, didn't even know about it. But I will say
yeah,
um, that it definitely, as I was researching it, made me want to look a little bit deeper into the story and the background. So in the chat, we've
yeah.
got Dan saying that it's a 3. We've got Kay that is giving it a rating of 4. We got Danielle in the chat. What's going on, Danielle? Um, and Jen, we will not, we're going to make sure that we stay away from a lot of the ending of it, and that's exactly why we didn't really get into it too much, because it's one of those movies that I think that you almost have to see um, to kind of get. You know what I mean? So, and it is a true story, Melissa. It is a true story. And let me just
Yeah.
also, for you guys, the real life Dorothy Stratton. Again, it's very, very sad story, and a lot of information is out there about her, and as
Yeah.
well as
Yep.
Neil was talking about another movie, and it's called Star 80, which I have images of that too. But this is a picture of Dorothy with Hugh Hefner, and she did win. I believe it was the Miss August, and that was a big point in the movie too, because at that point she started
Mhm.
to really get her own um, taste of fame, and confidence. So it was a really, really big turning point. This is an image of her in the real life Paul Schneider.
Yeah.
And, again, a very, very tragic story. It really, really is. That's them as well. Um, so and as we had talked about, there was another movie. Now, the other movie I haven't seen, but I'll be quite honest, I'm interested to check it out. And it's
Yeah.
called Star 80, and it stars Mariel Hemingway and Eric Roberts. Eric Roberts is portraying Paul Snyder in this. So
Mhm.
that's really, really interesting. I know that there was something out there. I didn't check it out, but Eric Roberts was being interviewed and asking, what made him take this particular role. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out at some point. Um, and Katie saying hi. Hey, what's going on, Katie? Good to
Hello.
see you. Good to see you. Um, and just to catch up to the chat a little bit, we got Sir James coming in with a $2 super chat. Alrighty. Saying I enjoyed it, but I prefer Star 80. I give it a 3 2. Well, thank you so much. And we
All
appreciate
right.
uh, the support, man. Really, really helps out a
Yeah.
lot. Um, Jen
Sure does.
saying I give it a 3 as well. It was very predictable. Um, well, yeah, I mean, it definitely was. This was not a movie. Let me just say this too. This is a totally different type of movie than what we would usually do on Slasher Movie Club. So this was not the type of movie like a who done it. There was no mystery to it whatsoever. So it
Yeah.
definitely was predictable, based upon um, a true story. So um, but yeah, I think that it was well done, and it really did have a charm to it. You definitely felt that it was a part of that time, 1980s, and
Yeah.
of course, it was
Yeah.
depicting a time a few years prior, from 1978 until then, I
Mhm.
believe. So
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and we also have. Let me just catch up into the chat. Um, Philip saying it's hard to watch anything about abuse because of how real it is and that it could happen to anyone. That is true. That is very, very true. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very challenging. No doubt about that whatsoever. Um, so Coriander, I think that for me, as far as knowing a little bit of the background of the story and knowing that
Yeah.
there's the other film out there, I definitely,
Mhm.
um, I'm definitely interested to check that out. Whether or not
Yeah. Yep.
we talk about it here, that's a little bit of a different story. But yeah,
Mhm.
I definitely think it would be an interesting watch.
Yep.
Now, just to let you guys know, we also have uh, a really cool thing here. Gina gifted a membership, and we appreciate that, Gina. Thank you so much. And it was actually
Yeah.
gifted to Melissa. So, Melissa, you got a
Nice.
gifted membership. Welcome to the inner circle of the Nightwatch
Yeah.
family. Thank you so much. And obviously, Melissa, you've been around here for a while. So,
Yeah.
um, very, very cool. And thank you, Gina. We appreciate that. Um,
Yeah.
and we also have Sir James coming in with another super chat. It's not showing up on StreamYard, so I can't display it. I don't know why. StreamYard sometimes does that. But just saying that I've been to the mansion and went to school with having her son. Crazy stories. Okay. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And thank you for the super chat. It really helps us out. Um, so,
Yeah.
Coriander, that's about all I have for Death of a Centerfold. A different type of movie
Yeah.
for us, but it's a cautionary tale, a very tragic story, but I think as far as a movie detailing it, I think it was done really well, and it really moved all three of us. So, yeah,
Yeah.
very, very interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Alrighty, guys. Well, for you guys in the chat, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Definitely leave us a comment if you're able to, and don't forget to like button. It helps to support the channel. We'd appreciate that. And we will be back with you guys next week. We actually have a poll for our next
Yeah.
episode of Slasher Movie Club that came down to it looked like a percentage point of one for the winner, which was really crazy. We had 3 films. So we'll be looking to set that up for next week and hope you guys can join us for that. So, anyways, we will talk to you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace out.